From the blue depths, a tyrant arises.
Hello everyone, welcome to Shelf Space. I'm your host Rodimus13, and today we are looking at something horrible, something terrible, something fishy. I thought it would be interesting to delve away from Gunpla for a little bit to look at some Transformers. This is the Bwhahah Megatron from Transformers Prime Beast Hunters. I thought its horrid appearance would be quite appropriate for this Halloween season. As you can see, this Megatron is quite different from his usual fare. His color scheme has been shifted from his usual grays and reds, or in the case of Transformers Prime, purples, to a more metallic deep bronze, metallic brown. It's a very interesting color, and the way the plastic shows it is quite enchanting, if you ask me. And as you also can see, he has an animal motif about him. This was a common thing in the Beast Hunters line. Even though it never showed up really in the show, they all had these beast-like appearances to them, though there was no real explanation given for it within the toy packaging, other than perhaps vague hints that it somehow aided them in their attempts to fight the Predacon dragons. Why he looks like a shark, I don't know. Some people tend to refer to this as Sharktacon Megatron, and I think it's a rather apt name, don't you? Well, let's stop rambling and start looking at articulation. And as always, we'll start with the head. The amount of detail they put into this is quite impressive. I particularly like the crest that he has going here, and his blue face with black teeth makes him look quite otherworldly and menacing. Appropriate for the leader of the Decepticons, I believe. His head is mounted on a ball socket joint, which allows for a little bit of movement, but because of the shape of his head, it's restricted. So he can look up a little bit, he can look down a little bit, look side to side, but it is restricted. Take a look at the back of the head. Those green eyes are also quite piercing. I love it. The way the shoulders are set up are somewhat interesting. He has these shoulder pads which are on armatures that connect to about where his collarbone would be. So to get movement above them, you'd have to make sure that these move as well. And it does restrict things, though you can lift it up if you want. The shoulder itself is a simple ball and socket joint with a bit of a cut at the top so that you can move it around fairly well. Elbow is a simple hinge for a 90-degree bend, and there is a swivel underneath. Wrists are locked for the most part, but you do have a joint for inward movement, but that is mostly for transformation. It should be noted that, like with many Transformers Prime and Beast Hunter toys, his hands are molded open, but they have the 5mm cut in them to make it easy for it to hold weapons and have them not fall out. We'll get to those in a little while. Mostly due to his transformation as well as to how they wanted to sculpt this figure, he has no waist articulation to speak of. He does have a ball socket joint at the hip that allows for a fairly decent kick up, as well as a decent kick back. Knee is single jointed, but you can get a rather deep bend with it. His feet have no ankle tilt or anything like that, but they can tilt like this. You can also close them up like this, but that is for transformation. So articulation-wise, he's about what you would expect for a toy of this vintage. Yes. Accessory-wise, he has one thing. He has this fish cannon thing. There should be a missile in there, but I have no idea where Rodimus 13 put it, so we're not going to worry about it. That's his problem, not mine. Like all the weapons of this line, it has a sort of automorph feature where if you tilt it like that, you can basically transform it into another kind of weapon. In this case, sort of a bladed staff. The molded detail on this weapon is amazing. They even painted parts of it, so you have, again, piercing green eyes and silver around the mouth. It almost feels as if this should be a drone of some sort that swims along with Megatron as he goes through the deeps. If you want, you can put it in his hand, where he holds it quite nicely. Being Megatron, you can also put it on his arm, but you can't quite get it in stable. And even if you could, it would just look awkward sticking out that far. And that's partly because he has this fin molded in. So I think it is best to just leave it where it is, in his hands. Let's go ahead and see what it looks like when it's transformed. Getting it to lock into place is somewhat difficult. There we go. I think it looks rather nice. Almost has sort of a harpoon shape to it as well, which seems quite appropriate. But this is a transformer after all. And that means it can do something. It can transform. Let's take a look. All right. So, let's begin the transformation. We'll start popping pieces away from one another. I don't have the instructions in front of me, so we're doing our best guesses as to the exact order of operations. You rotate the arms like this, and there are pegs and holes right here. And you rotate the arms around, so that way these clips can come together, like so. Then we're going to separate out this fish head and have this torso plate come down a little bit, and his waist can move back while we reconnect the heads. I'm going to close these up. Cover this up. The original toy had a visible head syndrome thing going on, so they did decide to fix it with this remold of it. Rather generous of them, I suppose. Now the legs, in a trick shared with many toys of this vintage, open up and panels are utilized in interesting ways. In this case, they can become his wings. So I just have to deduce the right positioning of everything, because we're getting very close to the end, aren't we? So we're going to rotate the legs around, get that into position. Right now it doesn't look like anything really pegs into place, but once you get the legs into position, there's a peg right there, and there's one here with the wing. And that gets everything locked into place quite nicely. Make sure to fold the feet up as well. And there we have it. It's a rather interesting design. With the fish motif on it, I guess it's some sort of perhaps submarine-like vehicle. I don't know, but I like how it looks. It's positively fearsome. It does look like it could come down and eat you if it wants. You can take the fish cannon and attach it to on top if you want, though it sort of ruins the sleek look of it. An interesting detail is that he has his own unique Decepticon symbol, and I don't think any of the other Decepticons of the Beast Hunters line had that. And there's no real explanation as to why, other than the designers were feeling cheeky, I suppose. But it is a very interesting vehicle design, and everything folds away fairly well. I suppose if you look at it on the bottom, you can see that it is a filleted and splayed out robot, but so do most Transformers, particular ones with ship-based modes or aircraft-based modes. So yes, I think this is a rather interesting figure, appropriate for the Halloween season. Let's go ahead and start transforming him back to robot mode. And I think that if you are interested in collecting Megatrons, you can't go wrong with adding this one to your collection. The Beast Hunters line had quite a few interesting additions to the folklore, as well as the overall design language of Transformers in general. The Transformers Prime toy line is when they started getting hit very hard with the budget constraints brought on by rising oil prices and the like. So they had to find new ways to do what they had done before without simply just reducing the size of the figures, which they did do. But they had to still find even more ways to get more bang for their buck, as it were. And the end result changed the way Transformers were designed forever. And I think that was for the best. Adapt or die. A rather apt motto for the making of Transformers, I suppose. Anyway, that has been a review. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all those fine YouTube manipulations. And don't forget, it'll all be over soon. I'll see you the next time you invade my shelf space.